Hello NBA fans and welcome to Raptors Report. Today we're going to be looking at some of the most egregious issues with the NBA rulebook and what the league can do to fix them. Let's jump right in. As a longtime viewer of the NBA, I've seen quite a few NBA rules changes over the years. Hand checking being eliminated, zone defense being allowed, and more recently, the increased use of instant replay technology, the introduction of coaches' challenges, the offensive rebound shot clock being changed from 24 seconds to 14, and other minor tweaks to the rulebook. For the most part, I think that the evolution of the rules in the NBA have been good. But as an avid viewer of the sport, I think that there needs to be a few additional changes made before the next season begins. Warning to the viewers, these aren't going to be fundamental changes to the game. There will be no 4-point line suggestions, no robotic refs, or slam ball trampolines. This will be more about tweaking the sport we all know and love to make it more of a pleasurable viewing experience. So without any further ado, let's get started with number 1. The first issue is the take foul and what the NBA can do to fix it. I'm sure that most avid basketball fans are pretty familiar with the dreaded take foul by this point, but for those unfamiliar, this dastardly practice is when a fast break or semi-fast break opportunity is about to happen and then, womp womp, a defender intentionally fouls the ball handler to rob the opposing team of a scoring opportunity and the fans of a cool fast break dunk. These fouls have always been part of the sport, but I think that it's ramped up significantly over the past few years to where essentially anything that even looks like it could result in a fast break is immediately broken up by a foul. The complaint here is mainly that it sucks to watch. One of the selling points of the NBA is that it boasts some of the most incredible athletes on the planet. And one of the coolest things a player can do with that athleticism is slamming the ball through the basket after jumping incredibly high. The take foul is robbing us all of those incredible highlights, but what could the solution be? One of the reasons that teams use take fouls is because it results in an inbounds play rather than free throws. So one solution is to widen the existing clear path foul to include plays that would result in an easy basket. The downside to this is that the clear path foul is a very harsh penalty, 2 free throws and getting the ball back. It also adds yet another opportunity for refs to pause the game and go look at a video replay, which, we don't need any more game delays. The solution that I think is a little more elegant and a lot less time consuming is adopting the advantage rule from soccer. Now, I'm not the first person to suggest this by any means, but I think it's a very cool idea. Advantage in soccer is when the refs are allowed to not assess an obvious foul, if, when doing so, would disadvantage the offensive team. That's how soccer removed their version of the take foul. I think that this would be a great way to address this issue, and if players go overboard with a foul thinking that the refs won't blow the whistle anyway, a flagrant foul could be assessed, which would nip that issue in the bud. Speaking of soccer, the next rule the NBA needs to institute is additional penalties for egregious flopping. NBA fans recently have been treated to some truly awful, zero-contact, Oscar-worthy acting jobs in order to get the refs to blow the whistle. Often, these performances are accompanied by a wink and a smile. You are ruining the sport that I love. With that off my chest, I think that there's a pretty easy solution to punish the truly egregious flops plaguing the NBA today. Currently, when a play is under video review, the refs are allowed to look at the play that is in question and no other plays surrounding it, aka even if they see that something else is wrong, they can only change the rule on the specific call that they made. My suggestion would be that if a ref sees that one of the players is completely inventing contact in an attempt to draw a foul during that video review, an unsportsmanlike technical foul can be assessed to them, in addition to the decision that's being made on the play in question. Coaches would be incentivized to challenge a call if they believe that the opposing player was doing a bit of gamesmanship, because it could lead to them picking up a tech. Players would also probably not be so dramatic when inventing an injury, because if the ref looks at the video review for a potential flagrant foul, whoopsie daisy, you just got the old switcheroo and have a technical foul for your acting efforts. Next up, the NBA needs to fix illegal screens. LeBron James, in a widely circulated tweet, criticized the NBA's reluctance to call moving and illegal screens. In today's NBA, screeners will move their feet, stick their butts out, shoulder check, and even grab players trying to get past them in an attempt to get their pick-and-roll partner free from their defender. The worst part, and I say this as a huge fan of the NBA, is that moving screens are selectively enforced, with star big men getting away with a lot more than a typical role player. The pick and roll is the most prevalent offensive play in the NBA. It's run hundreds of times in a typical game, with a bunch of different variations that I won't get into right now. But essentially, the goal is to put the defender in a trailing position when they go over the screen, allowing the ball handler to get into the lane. Right now, illegal ball screens are very infrequently enforced, meaning that teams are actually incentivized to get away with as much as possible when screening. And this can lead to injuries and generally makes the game less appealing to watch, in my opinion. The solution is literally just to call more illegal screen violations and to drill NBA refs on what to watch out for. Nothing fancy, but it needs to be tightened up. Last on our list is probably my favorite because I didn't actually have to come up with anything. The NBA did it for me. At the beginning of last season, the NBA instituted some much-needed change, pledging to eliminate the stuff that fans absolutely loathed. Some of the things they promised to fix were the utterly garbage wait until your defender is behind you and then stop so that they run into you foul, the offensive player using their off arm to wrap up the defender's arm, jumping forward into your defender when you're taking a shot, and kicking your leg out in midair in order to draw contact on jump shots. The umbrella term for these plays was abnormal non-basketball moves. I was actually a huge fan of how they were calling the games at the beginning of last season, with many of the repeat offenders like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, James Harden, and other premier ball handlers not being rewarded for these small, dirty tricks. Unfortunately, and I think part of this is because the NBA is a star-driven league, the refs' willingness to enforce these rules began to wane as the season went on. The only rule of these that I see consistently enforced by refs is punishing players who kick their legs out on shot attempts. The arm grabbing, jumping into guys, stopping to let players run into you, etc. seem to be back on the menu for NBA stars. If it were up to me, I would revert back to the way that they called the game at the beginning of last season and just simply keep it that way. Arm grabbing in particular is a pet peeve of mine. The old saying, "You reach, I teach," has become more, "Your arm is near to mine, I want to go to the free throw line." Offensive players are talented enough that they don't need to resort to this kind of trickery to put up points. It's tacky and it leads to frustration when the stars of the league manipulate the rules in order to gain an advantage, and they get away with it. And that's this week's episode of Raptors Report. What do you think of the proposed rule changes that I made? Are there any others that you think I could have touched on? Any that you disagree with? Let me know here in the comment section or on Twitter, where you can find me at Raps Report. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And as always, thanks for watching Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.